In the previous lecture, we already defined the basic structure of our login page. We have a couple of entries and a button, but this design isn't ready, even when we have already implemented the event handler for the click of a button. To identify the couple of things that may be missing, let's go ahead and run our application. In this case, I'm going to run the application on an Android emulator because I'm on Windows and it's easier to show you, because the iOS emulator will actually launch on another computer. But remember that it doesn't matter where you test this application, because this is Xamarin Forms, it will look and work pretty much the same way. So I have here the application up and running, and notice that it does look very well. I mean, we do have both entries and we have the button, but it is missing something. Notice that the entries don't really give any hint about what we are supposed to write inside of them. And if we were to write something in here, for example, an email, well, it does work, but we do have to navigate to a different part of the keyboard to find the @ sign. And if we start typing the password, well, it doesn't hide. That is not good. So there are a couple of things that we need to change in here. Let's get back to Visual Studio and stop the application from running and start by adding a placeholder to the entries. We have worked with placeholders before, and we know that they act as a kind of hint for the user to know what they are supposed to write inside of the entries. In the case of the first entry, we want to set the placeholder to be email address. The second entry is also going to need a placeholder. In this case, the placeholder should just be password. And so we have solved the first thing. We now display hints for the user to let them know what they are supposed to write inside of the entries. But there are a couple of properties that I want to introduce to you to make the user experience much better. The first one is the property that is called keyboard. This will allow the entry to change the keyboard that the operating system is displaying so the user experience is better. For example, for this entry that we want to write down an email address, we should display a keyboard that probably displays the @ sign immediately. In this case, all we have to do is assign the keyboard property to email. The other property that I want to introduce to you is the isPassword property. And this is a Boolean property, meaning that it can take either false or true. Because this entry was created to receive the password from the user, this entry has to have a value of true in its isPassword property. Let's take a look at the changes that we've made by executing the app one more time. So I'm going to run again on an Android simulator. And as soon as the application is up and running, we see the first change already here. And that is the hint that we see on both entries. We see that in here we have to write our email address and in here our password. And notice now the keyboard, how it is different in the entry for the password where we didn't set the keyboard to be different than the keyboard that is displayed in the email address entry where we did change the keyboard. Notice that we see this @ sign right in here so we can start typing our email address and have easy access to the @ sign. And then notice what happens when we start typing inside of the password where we set the property isPassword to be true. As I start typing, the characters are being hid. This allows the user to just keep typing a password without worrying about it being displayed to anyone just happening to be looking at the phone. So by just setting the value of a couple of properties from SAML, we have improved the overall user experience for the user when using these entries. We can now stop the application from running, and in the next lecture we're going to learn what we can do to be able to see the changes that we make inside of our SAML pages without needing to run the application over and over again.